Okay, I think we're ready to go. Right? Can someone just speak? I just want to take the test if everything is all right. Orko?
Yeah, hi. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining this space and thanks for inviting me, Joey.
Thank you. Welcome aboard. So let's begin the spaces. And I'm guessing for the first time in a long time, everybody in Indian football seems to be on a very relatively happier mood. And it's been a while since we've won two games back to back. That too in a tournament which is of relevance. And hopefully, in the next game, we can, you know, push for a better time in Indian football. Something which all of us is expecting. But this is not the positive wave that has just hit us from Indian football for the last week or so. We have to keep in mind that no matter how positive this last week has been, the last many years before this has not been very positive, right? And this cannot be a representation of what has happened over the last few years. So the purpose of this conversation is to engage discourse among people all over the country, fan groups, both European fan groups and Indian fan groups, and every other person who's a stakeholder in Indian football, and take their opinion and make their understanding and note down just to present the decision makers who will be drafting the final constitution for the AIFF. So, before I begin, I would like to state the structure of this meeting. The structure of this meeting is basically divided into six parts. The first part is hosted by Blue Pilgrims, that is me. Individually, I am a member of Blue Pilgrims. Even if you know me, I am going to be referred to as Blue Pilgrims for the entire conversation, for the sake of clarity and also as being the voice of the entire organization um on behalf of the entire organization. Segment two is going to be basically a summary, which is also going to be stated by me. And all of these, difficult terms that are there in the constitution, all of these terms which are not legally, which are legally put down but are not easily understood by laymen like us, has sort of been summarized by people who are at Blue Pilgrims. And so if there are going to be mistakes, so if you are a lawyer or if you are someone who's well versed with the constitution, you can always point it out to us, but that has to be noted down for a later time when the segment is open to the public. In this third segment, we are going to pull in some noted co-hosts who will be discussing and comparing the current constitution with the constitution that was laid down earlier, and basically talking about what the improvements are in this constitution and where the scope of improvement further is there in this particular constitution, and any other suggestions and public discussions which may be of added value. This will be discussed only by a panel, and the panel will comprise of Orko, who's a noted journalist, and one of the here FC, and Peter, who is also a noted journalist and who runs this podcast called Injury Time, and me as well. Uh, me in this section as well. In the fourth segment, we will read out a list of suggestions that has already been put by the public in the initial Twitter post, which was shared by Dr. Quraishi, where he put out the document to the public saying that I am inviting comments to the public, and I would like you to be a part of the discussion. There were a lot of comments that was put under his tweet, and they have all been classified and accommodated in an Excel file, which will be open to the public to add further comments on. But we will slightly just read out whatever is already there, and keep it open for the rest of the public to add to it as we move forward. In the segment, we'll have people speak from the spaces. So we'll have people who are interested in putting their observations of the AFF, their understanding of the AFF, and their uh, opinions on how things should change. Remember, these comments which have to be put out by these people cannot be long, lengthy discussions. We are very short of time. It has to be one statement as to, okay, this is what I feel should be the thing that should be added to the constitution. So it has to be one line put forward, and that line will of course be recorded, and we will incorporate that into uh, the Excel sheet that we have. Or if you wish to incorporate it into the Excel sheet, you can do that too. So we have kept the public discourse to be show, or this is not a discussion show. This is more of a, a show where more of like and meet again person. Okay. So please keep that in mind when we open segment 5 to the public. And segment 6 is basically so one more thing with the segment 5, we have kept it if you don't wish to put your suggestions in public, you can always put it anonymously. So we can have two sections where you can put it. One is in the public, which can be under a Twitter thread that we make, and the other is the Excel sheet where nobody gets to know who you are or what your name is, or like what who's the one behind the suggestion, right? So the reason why we are doing this is because one of the biggest complaints that we are finding from the AIFF is that a lot of people in Indian football are working under environment of threat, and we do not want anyone to be subjugated to any sort of threat moving forward. Uh, Segment 6 is the conclusion and the next steps to the public, and what we make of this entire discussion, and how we will put this entire discussion out into a public domain so that everybody can refer to it again and again if and when required. What kind of documents will we be making available to the public so that we can engage in further conversations in a much more structured way, and that for us will be the end of the whole conversation. So this Twitter Spaces is being attended by um, eminent journalists and media persons, media accounts on Twitter, who are involved in Indian football, administrators, and those involved in football like coaches, owners, players, referees, and others. Groups. These people are people who are employed in the sport, and other than that, we also have people who are not directly employed in the sport, but consume the sport as a source of entertainment or a form of a medium of expression. uh, Groups. This includes groups and individuals that support the sport, both Indian football fan clubs as well as European fan clubs in India, and the general public who are interested in football or in Indian football. So before we begin, we would like to just summarize how the AIFF is structured according to the new constitution. The AIFF is comprised of a general body, which is the supreme legislative body in the sense that they make all the rules, and is comprised of of full members and professional members or associate members or individual members, right? Uh, Full members are basically state associations in most cases, and they are represented by two people from each state association, and both of them have the right to vote. Individual members are basically players who are going to be a part of the general body moving forward. Uh, in general, you have one member association from each state, and so every state has one is forms one member association, and they together form the AIFF. And 33% of the total members of the general body is reserved for ex players, of which 40% has to be female ex players. So out of the 33% of the total members, 40% has to be female players, right? Um, After the general body, you have the executive committee. Um, Executive committee is comprised of a president, a vice president, a treasurer, five members, two of which are elected by the AIFF and three by the Football Players Commission, which is the 33% of the people who are ex-players, and one nominee from the CAG. After the executive committee, you have the general secretariat or the administrative body, which is comprised of two salaried. I don't know if the CEO is salaried. So there are two roles: CEO and the general secretary. Apart from this, you have the standing committee and the departments. You have the audit committee. You have the finance committee. You have the committee, competitions committee. You have the futsal and the beach soccer committee. You have the referees committee. You have the technical development and league committee, sports medical committee, club licensing committee, and women's football committee. Players commissions. There's another committee called the players commissions, which is basically comprised of ex-players, out of which, as I said before, 33%, out of which, out of which which will have seven members, out of which three should be female members. Apart from this, you also have the judicial bodies of the AIFF, which is the disciplinary committee, appeals committee, ethics committee, player status committee, club licensing appeals body, chairperson, vice chairpersons, and members, and other people who are there are part of the judicial bodies at AIFF. So far, this is the structure of the AIFF. And before we move on to the summary of what the AIFF constitution is all about, I would like to call in Orko to just verify that if everything is on track so far. Orko?
Sorry, Joy, can you just repeat the last bit? I think you cut out a bit for me.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask
Hmm.
you if so far whatever is been said is on point and we are moving ahead in the right direction.
Yes, 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 yes. I think we should start with the uh, discussion of the new constitution, and we should carry it forward. Yeah. Clear.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So now we move on to the summary. So summary is basically what we thought was most important and more relevant, and it is not exhaustive in any way, but it picks up the points which we think is important. So we might have left out important things. So it is for you or the general public or the people who are listening to add to it later on, and not consider this to be the final document, which is the most important parts of the constitution, as I say. So please feel free to rectify me or at any point when the house is open to the public in the later segment. Article 1 describes basically the definitions. So you're saying there's the part which says that, okay, uh, if you're a minister, a government servant, or a public servant, you cannot hold office in the AFF. Eminent player, there's a rule for eminent players. There's a definition for eminent players for somebody who's a past footballer who was retired at least for 5 years ago and has represented India in at least 15 games is eligible to be a part of the eminent player criteria for the AIFF for the general body. For women, they must have played has to be five for the ex-national team players, which combine together to form the Football Plus Commission, which is a part of the general body. The general secretary uh, means somebody who's the chief salaried executive administrator of the AIFF. So most people in the AIFF, people from the state FAs, they do not draw a salary. But the general secretary and other certain other members who are involved in administrative work for the AIFF will draw a salary. A part of the definition of the topmost league is where the league is owned and operated and recognized by the AIFF. And an ombudsman is someone who is given the authority to address any sort of grievance which arises regarding the AIFF. And this ombudsman is somebody who's independent from the AIFF. So this is the definitions in Article 1. In Article 3, we have the objectives of the AIFF. And when it comes to the objectives of the AIFF, you basically, have a list of things which the AIFF has to take into account as the prime governing body which is in charge of running football in the country. And most of these things are in general put down in a way which is applicable for most organizations around the world. And one of these things, which is more relevant to what is happening right now, is to ensure that I'm just going to read it out, and I'll leave the rest of the summary in the document, which somebody can refer to later, because it's too big to read out everything. But for now, what is relevant in today's in the last few days, what has been happening is basically one of the jobs of the AFF is to ensure tickets to football matches are widely available to the public at reasonable rates, and to see that the distribution of these tickets are not prevented in any way or the other. We've read out the Article 4, which is basically comprises of the AFF general body, which comprises the bodies of the AFF. The AFF is comprised of the general body, the executive committee, the general secretariat, and other committees, standing committees, and other departments of the general body. The AFF stands on against racism. Basically, AFF is an autonomous body without any political affiliation and is neutral in matters of politics, religion, caste, or community. This is Article 5. Article 6 says the AFF is responsible for promoting friendly relations between members, club officials, players, and other stakeholders, which I'm guessing is also fans. The Article 11 divides, basically talks about the zones that the AIFFs operate in from a geographical point of view. The AIFF has been considered into the following zone. We have the North Zone, we have the Northeast Zone, we have the East Zone, we have the West Zone, and we have the South Zone. So we have different states under each zone, and each of these states have their own state FS, which come under the zones of the AIFF. Article 12 basically talks about the types of membership and rights under the AIFF. You have a full member and associate members and other independent members. Article 13 basically talks about the admission of members to the AIFF, and it basically follows standard procedures which were there in the previous constitution as well. Uh, it does talk about the fact that the new introduction to this constitution is that at least 33% of the total number of representatives eligible to vote in the general body of the AIFF is required to comprise of ex-players. Uh, we have already spoken about that. So right now, we have this addition of 33% of the players who will be incorporated in the general body of the AIFF. Article 14 talks about the obligations of the member associations. So the member of associations in the sense that the state affairs, what are the obligations and what are they supposed to do when it comes to running football at the different state and district levels. Again, these obligations have been put down in a summary in a document. So we will be leaving that in an open drive so that everybody can refer to it. Article 16 talks about suspensions and resignations. If what happens if the state affairs are not following a particular protocol? For example, if the state affairs don't participate in three competitions which are owned and organized by the AIFF, or do not conduct a league every year, they will be warned and they will be not allowed to vote. And moving forward in the second year, if this still continues, they will face a suspension, and 3 years in a row they will be expelled from the AIFF. Article 19 basically talks about the general body of the AIFF. What the general body comprises of, and one point of note over here is that 70 years of age is the maximum after which whoever's an office bearer in the general body will be expelled. Article 23 talks about minutes. Basically, uh, by minutes, I mean that what was happening in the body meetings, both in the AGMs and SGMs, are required to be recorded, preserved securely, and in video or in a document form, and made and has to be documented in a way so that it can be referred to people who want to refer to it at some point of time. I'm not sure whether this is open to the public or whether this is for legal purposes, but this is which we will find out later. Uh,
I think just to intervene here, that was a question that I also had, and I'm sure someone can clarify with me. I think the decisions of committees such as the disciplinary committee, if it's related to age fraud or player status or contract breach, I mean, I just think it would be better if these committee decisions were publicly shared, so that I think general stakeholders are aware, and they can both be wary and careful about having the same pitfalls in their system. So this was just something I wanted to bring up regarding Article 23.
Yeah. So Arko, we will come to that point. So everybody just take notes. I'm not sure if how many of you have actually gone through the constitution, but you have. So if I'm reading out a particular article and you keep and it comes to your mind that okay, this needs to be incorporated into the suggestions, just keep a note so that when we open it to the public, you can we can talk about it, right? So for now, right now, this segment is just to summarize what each article is about, and so that and everything else is available in the document that I will be sharing in the end, so that people can refer to it, read it, and then use their time to brainstorm and then leave their own comments. So we'll have like a 7 to 10 day window where people can leave their comments about the constitution and the different articles in the Excel sheet that we will be providing, and then we again meet again after 10 days to talk about what are the final suggestions that we submit to Dr. Quraishi from uh, the side of the public, whatever we call it as the wisdom of the crowds, right? Uh, so yeah, I mean, Article 24, office bearers of the AIFF and composition of the executive committee. So basically, it talks about um, you know the president, the vice president of the executive committee, the treasurers, and the people who comprise of the executive committee. And it also says that no person drawing any salary or financial benefit from the AFF for any service provided to or rendered to AFF shall be a part of the executive committee, except for the general secretary. So the general secretary is the only person who's drawing a salary and can be a part of the executive committee. Nobody else can be a part of the executive committee who's drawing a salary in the AIFF. Um, uh, Article 25 is basically talking about the terms and the tenure and the age limit of the office bearers of the AIFF. And so the executive committee shall last for 4 years, before which I think all their positions will be of honorary positions, and before which there has to be a restructuring of the executive committee, I feel. The president of the AIFF shall last for 12, I mean, he can hold office for 12 years. I mean, 4 years, 4 years, 4 years. I mean, he has to be elected for 3 consecutive periods, and that's the maximum amount of time he can serve as president. 70 years is the age limit for any non-salaried official to be holding position in the AIFF. I think for salaried officials, it's about 60 years. So the general secretary can serve till he's 60, or anybody else who's earning a salary in AIFF can serve only till he's 60. Um, so somebody can also serve 12 years in the state FA and then serve 12 years in the AIFF. So in for example, like if somebody is in the Bengal FA or Maharashtra FA, they can serve for 12 years in that FA, and then after they resign, if they're elected for the AIFF office, then they can serve another 12 years after they resign from the state FA. Uh, So, Article 28, powers and duties of the executive committee, it basically talks about uh, what is the role and of the executive committee, and what kind of powers are vested upon them. And basically, they have the role to appoint the technical director, the head coach of the senior national teams, for example, the men's and the women's national team. Uh, the executive committee also appoints the general secretary, and the executive committee may also invite people of specialized capacities, for example, consultants or doctors or advocates or psychologists and stuff like that, to aid in better understanding of India a better footballing nation. So, yep. Article 30 is the standing committee, and the standing committee is basically comprised of the finance committee, uh, competitions committee, futsal and beach soccer committee, referees committee, technical development and league committee, and sports medical committees and club licensing committees and women's football committees. So basically, it's all of these committees put together, and they're all called together. They're called the standing committee. Article 54 is talks about administration or day-to-day management of the AIFF. People who are hired by the AIFF on a salary to make the AIFF, to perform duties of the AIFF on a day-to-day basis. For example, you have CEO and a general secretary, and you have people in the media, you have people for operations, and have people for human resource and finance and technical of IT and stuff like that. So all of these people who are hired by the AFF, they can only serve in the AFF for till the age of 60. Article 54 talks about the General Secretary. General Secretary is the chief salaried administrator, as I already said before, and he shall be required to fulfill an eligibility check uh, performed by the Ethics Committee before his appointment, which I feel is a very important point to note, that the General Secretary shall be required to fulfill an eligibility criteria and a check by the Ethics Committee before his appointment. I think most people understand what I'm trying to say. Uh, his role, or the duties which he needs to fulfill will is a list of 10 to 15 points, which is also kept into the document that I'll be sharing by the end of the conversation or by tomorrow morning. A new role that has been incorporated into the AIFF constitution this year is put under Article 56, which is the Chief Executive Officer or CEO. And basically, the CEO's role is to, make information available to the public in a way which is easily available and is well documented. So it says that to start and maintain a library of books, periodicals, DVDs, and other databases on sports journals and other areas where AFF, to produce content for telecast of football matches and ceremonies by hiring and owning equipment and necessary crew and technicians for that. So, for example, right now we are dealing with a lot of issues which are concerning broadcast or you know non-announcement or publicity of when India is going to play and where they're going to play, and and whether the team matches are going to be broadcasted on national TV and all that. So the CEO's role is to coordinate everything of this sort and make this a streamlined process. Uh, Also, the role of the CEO is to enter to sign contracts with third party vendors for the AIFF. Uh, you know. For example, I think commercial deals, television contracts, and media rights and broadcast contracts, and all of that. So right now, I feel like Orco. So far, we did not have Orko, you can jump in over here. I think so far we did not have the role of the CEO before this, and this is a new addition to the AIFF constitution, and this basically focuses on the fact that the game needs to be distributed in a much more better way across the nation and outside the nation uh, to improve the image and the brand of Indian football throughout. Am I right?
I think this is a very obvious move towards professionalizing the AIFF. Um, Clearly, I mean, one of the things that was probably lacking right now is probably a CEO. and he seems to have been vested with a lot of functions, as you can see in Article 57. And
56, 56 and 57. Yeah,
functions of the CEO are in
yeah,
Article
57,
57. Yeah,
57. Yeah,
and I think there have been process gaps. For example, the one you said produced by itself, the football content, right?
yeah,
And this is very important in the 21st century to own your own content and to distribute it and to market it well. So,
yeah,
I mean, there are a few points that are concerning. For example, managing director of a company or enterprise with a turnover of at least 35 crores, that I think eliminates most people in football, right?
yeah,
So yeah, I mean there are a few chinks in this, but overall, I'd say it's a step in the right direction.
yeah. Thank you. So Article 65 is about rights and authorizations. So it's basically an extension of what Orko said. Uh, Basically, AIF has to own the rights of all the content that is being produced around Indian football, and the details of this, of this article is of course there in the summary document. But basically, it says that anything that is being produced in Indian football, I think, including the leagues, the topmost league, which is owned by the AIFF, audiovisual, radio recordings, financial rights, commercial rights, everything, broadcasting rights, will be owned. Is the AIFF is the original owner of all of these rights, uh, and they are the ones who are responsible for distribution of these to other third party vendors or whoever so is willing to use them. So yeah, so this basically talks about the content and the distribution of content for Indian football properties under the AIFF. Article 73 after this is talks about transparency. Article 73 is basically you know just a second. Okay, so basically it talks about that everything which is owned by the AIFF in terms of regulations, details of members of people holding office, resolutions, orders, and rules and regulations that have been passed, and everything has to follow a particular procedure, and it has to be uploaded in a way which is available for view to the public. And it is the responsibility of the CEO to get all of this done, including audited accounts, balance sheets, profit and loss accounts, and all of the annual reports and financial reports, which are generated on a yearly basis. So I feel that for us makes uh, I think that those are the important points that we from Blue Pilgrims found were relevant, important articles which were relevant to at least summarize in this Twitter Spaces. Of course, it's impossible to summarize everything. Or also, it's impossible to talk about everything, every detail that is there in each and every article. But we will leave a document for everyone to go through the summary so that it's easier for everyone to understand what each article means, at least what each important article means. And hopefully we can meet again when everybody's put their own suggestions down in the Excel sheet. But then we can have a much more detailed public discourse discussion on what is the final recommendations that we have for Dr. Quraishi from the side of the public or the fans in Indian football. So now we move on to the third segment. The third segment is basically discussing uh, discussing with Orko and Peter, sorry, Naveen, and Sandy, if Sandy is available, uh, about what the changes are from the previous constitution in this new constitution. So I will hand over the mic to Orko and Sandy. If you guys can, summarize the whole, changes which we've had in the AIFF constitution from the last time. Within 10 to 15 minutes for the people who are listening, so that it's easier for them to understand. Like what exactly has changed from before. Okay.
Yeah, we will. Thanks for that, Joey. I think Tushar, you want to quickly sneak in a point before we start.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to bring out two important points which came from what was said earlier. And under Article 57, something really important struck me, which is there in this constitution, is that it talks about two very important things, that is to prescribe guidelines to involve more Indians in the game of football and to encourage participation of all sections of society. And secondly, it also says to frame guidelines generally for the convenience and ease of day-to-day management of affairs of AIFF. But I see this as a very welcome move to bring more inclusiveness in how football works in India right now. And this also is an indication that fans can also be an important stakeholder in the game of football and how administration of football works. And lastly, I want to bring out one point which was earlier discussed in which was said about the committees being formed and how public it would be. In light of that, Article 73 very clearly states that transparency will be a part of this constitution, and it has a very clearly mentioned point that the composition of various committees, their reports of work done and or issues, matters handled, financial outlay, and expenditures will be uploaded on the website of the AIFF on a quarterly basis. So this is very clear from the constitution that whatever the committees do and how it works and what the work is done by them has to be made public in a very transparent manner. So this looks like a very welcome move to me at least.
Yeah. Thank you, Tushar. I mean, we would invite more lawyers like Tushar to study the constitution and read it out to us like this in a much more easier way, so that people actually get the real meaning of what the statements in the constitution can mean in terms of their rights, or what the AFF should be doing when it comes to Indian football. Orko, you can take it up. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that. Joey, I'm just going to invite Sandeep also to join me here just to co-host this session. And like Joey said, I think we want more lawyers to help us interpret this better, to help us layman. I mean, we have an understanding, obviously, but you guys can surely enhance our understanding of this new constitution. Till then, I think I'll just pick Tushar's brain, which is relevant to this section only. One of the new additions to the constitution, and I really wanted to take this up, is Article 74, independence, right? And having had previous experience in the financial sector, just wanted to say independence is a concept that comes from there. It means that, if you're in a position to take, let's say, a decision, right? You cannot hold a position that will let you have a conflicting, what do you say, conflicting opinion, right? You can't have it, and it's true not just with any assets or any positions that you hold. It's also do with your family members. I mean, this is the definition of independence, very crudely, as I understand it. Tushar, have you read Article 74? Do you want to explain to the public about this independence clause?
To be honest, I haven't delved so
Okay.
deeply with 74, so I won't be in a position to actually tell you about it. But it looks like a very welcome move to me, like how you mentioned.
Right, right. So, independence, Article 74 essentially mentions three sections. One is, other official functions in AFF, other official functions slash designation members in the affiliate units, and material business relationships with AFF, right? And it mentions as to who and what cannot hold these positions. For example, members of pre-existing communities cannot hold other official functions in AFF according to the independence matrix. Other members of judicial bodies cannot hold, and chairpersons and of judicial bodies can also not hold. So it's a very interesting clause. I'd ask all of you to read through it. Another new clause that has been added is conflict of interest. I mean, the previous constitution has it in bits and parts, but here we have an entire, what do you say, section.
CEO has to have served in a company which for at least 5 years, which has had a turnover of at least 35 crores. So yeah, I mean, this is what Orco means, that the kind of people you have to hire has to be of certain pedigree and certain caliber, who has led other companies in the past, which are decently of big size. Yeah.
It also probably means, like I said, that you have somebody, probably somebody serving as the chief executive officer or managing director of a non-footballing company come in. It is a high possibility. It is also a possibility that we might get somebody from outside the Indian football ecosystem. Sorry, Tushar, please continue.
No, exactly like you said. I was thinking of the same lines that this actually opens a lot of possibilities of other people entering football, and I think this is one of the places where we can propose a change or like a recommendation of of moving around this 35 crore clause, or at least pushing for someone at least for having a football background to be that should be a prerequisite for someone to enter, as opposed to just having a financial roadblock of 35 crores to be there in place. I think, as you said rightly, that
Yeah,
at
yeah.
least someone having a football background should be a prerequisite for a post like
Yeah, so
this.
the marking should not be just financial. It can be
Yeah.
financial plus football. So that you have two parameters to judge somebody on, right?
Yes, yes, that makes sense to me at least.
Yeah. Orko, another thing which we wanted to talk about is the district association and the state association. There have been some new clauses into the whole district and state associations which talk about their requirement to hold, have an association in every district, failure to which the state association might be expelled from the AIFF. Orko?
Yeah, just coming to that clause. I think this is under, you're talking about full members or associate and associate members. Yeah, this is
Full members,
article
full members. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm just going to read out the league clause of it. I think it speaks about that full members have to have, let's say, one of the most important parameters is that it should have conducted a regular league for at least the past 3 years within its own state or union territory. Right? I think it's a very important clause. One of the additions I would also say to this I would make is that if the league is continued, how it should serve a period of of cool down before it is recognized as state league. Like you cannot, let's say, cancel it for 5 years and then hold it for 1 year for it to be called a league. I think the league has to run continuously for at least 5 years for you to be eligible to even play the second division, for you to even nominate a team. I think all of this should come in, right? This is my 2 cents on this. Uh, just adding more points from this clause. It also says that associate members can also be part. Like the old constitution also says, railways and services are going to be are the current associate members, and the associate members. I think only two for now. But it's interesting. I mean, what is the criteria for somebody to be an associate member? That is open for debate. Then you essentially have a list of rules and obligations of every member association. It's too long, but one of the clauses that caught my one was to formulate a long development plan for junior football, including under 19, under 15, under 13 for boys and girls. This is point number 3.37. So formulate a long development plan, yes, but I feel this point should also talk about implementation, right? Not just formulating a plan and having it on paper, and implementation. Article 15 is short, but it has 5 points for the grounds for derecognition and withholding of full members, right? Coincidentally, the league part of it is mentioned in the duties, but it's not mentioned in the derecognition withholding of benefits from full members. So I feel there has to be league clause in the derecognition bit of it. Tushar, you can add on to it if you have any points here.
I actually have a point in another article, that is Article 16, that is suspensions and resignations. If you could read 3.6 of the Article 16, it talks about member associations which do not participate in at least three competitions owned, organized by AIFF in a season, or do not organize at least one league competition for the senior team of the registered clubs of that member association every year shall be served with a warning and may be suspended from participating in any voting activity of the general body. I wanted to know how this three competitions owned and organized by FIFA by AIFF actually works. Like in a season, do not organize at least one league competition. How are we actually proposing this to work? Do we actually see three competitions owned organized by AIFF in a season actually happening at this stage? Or is this the roadmap which we have coming in place? Does it
So,
correspond with
uh,
that?
so I think what they mean is that three competitions just doesn't mean like the Santosh Trophy. It also means like the I League and the ISL. So if you have an association, it might be wrong, but like if you have an association, if you have a club from that particular association playing in that league, then it counts as a tournament. But this again is sort of, or maybe it could be that the state leagues or a state cup or anything of that sort, where you know they have to at least organize it, and like the district associations under them have to play in that particular tournament, uh, like every year. If they don't have it in 2 years, then it leads to a suspension. If you don't have it in 3 years, then they are expelled from the AIFF. So this is, I think, some more clarity is required on this, because there's no, as you said, there's no understanding of what it means by a competition or a tournament, which is specified in the in the constitution over here. Also, another point which I feel is very relevant is what are the parameters which are being used to gauge whether um, somebody has successfully hosted a particular league. For example, we have seen for so many times in Indian football that when you talk about hosting a league, especially in women's football, you have somebody who's organizing an entire league in 2 weeks, and then they're saying that okay, we've conducted the league. So I mean, there has to be certain regulations put down on paper as to how what is the difference between a league and a cup, and in terms of time, so that because time in fact is a very important indicator of how many matches are being played, how many people are how many um, clubs are participating, and how many and as an offshoot, how many people are actually getting to participate in this particular tournament, right? So also, we suggest that the evaluation of state FAs, on whether they are allowed to vote, or whether they are allowed to whether they are allowed to continue their membership in the AIFF, or any sort of, or suspensions or regulations, should also be decided on some sort of a ranking system, which takes into account uh, which takes into account some sort of the leagues, the how many leagues they've conducted, the duration of the leagues, how many people have participated at different levels of the tournament, and so and so. So this is a very complicated, maybe like, could be a complicated statistical procedure, but I'm sure the AFF could hire relevant statisticians or other people who can develop a ranking system, so that you have some sort of a way to measure and calibrate performance for each state, at so that you can penalize or hold accountable for those who are not living up to their potential, the duty, following the duties as laid down by the constitution of the AFF.
Just quickly jumping in here about the two things that you said, right? I think I agree. We should have the definition of what is a league and separate it from what is a tournament. But just to change up the parameters, I wouldn't put it as a time wise thing. I would put it in number of match days and in the number of teams. That the league needs to have a minimum number of teams and match days to be called a league, right, or to be defined as a league.
Agree, yeah.
And just just clarifying, it's not just women's football. This year, the Himachal League, for example, finished in 8 days, if I'm not wrong, right? So it's not just your women's league. It's all state competitions suffering from this short termness. The second bit that you mentioned, very interesting. AFF did have a ranking once upon a time, but the rankings had no correlation to, let's say, the number of players that the state had in the top division, right? Of course, I'm not saying that if you have a lot of players that you're doing well, but I think this has to be one of the main criteria instead of just how many coaching courses have been conducted or how many what do you say, how many coaches are coming out of a state, right? So they had a ranking. I think this methodology needs to be made more public so that everyone can just take a look at it and know what are the criteria for this.
Yeah, I think like there has to be a robust definition of the ranking system, and it should incorporate all variables which may influence, influence the kind of performance that is measured when it comes to the ranking system, right? So I mean that's something which will require a lot of like research and understanding, and just evaluation from different sectors of the economy when it comes to ranking. But yeah, this is a proposed idea, and of course, if it can be included in the constitution, a ranking system that can be they put in stone, and then you can have the AIFF working on it in the future. Yeah, Tushar. Yeah.
Yeah, in addition to about what you said about the leagues and how it should be organized and scheduled, I would like to bring to your notice that Article 2 talks about, Article 2 of the Constitution talks about that AIFF will have to comply with the provisions of the sports code. That is the national sports code given by the National Sports Development Code of 2011. I'm reading out 1.4.5, clause 1.4.5 of the National Sports Development Code, which says development of clubs. It talks about state units have to be encouraged to start league tournaments for the clubs. And then 1.4.6 of the same code says that, I just summarize it, which says that a planning of any domestic tournament schedule has to be done in advance to help the states, and the dates and venues of all tournaments should become available to all interested persons on the 1st of April of every year in a printed form. So I think this is something which should be actually complied with, and this also gives a lot of leeway to all the state FAs to actually plan. So there should be a structure where every 1st of April, I don't know if it's being implemented. No, that is my lack of knowledge. But if it isn't being done, this should be in place where every 1st of April, every state FA is told how long and how many matches they'll have to be playing in a certain year, and that's how about they should be going further in their year.
Yeah, I think that basically takes care of the fact that okay, we need to define what kind of variables we need to use to rank state affairs, right? Orko,
Yeah,
you can continue. Yeah.
yeah. I think that should be a, like Tushar said, there should be a target set at the start of the year. One of the things I'd like to point out, and it's honestly something that so firstly, we're no clearer to understanding what is the pyramid structure in our football system. We still don't have the clarity as to what league is at the top of a pyramid, what are the levels of the pyramid. I really hope that this would be clearly defined to end any speculation, and speculation's been going on for almost a decade now, right? And I think the constitution clearly says the AFF has to conduct and hold the marketing rights to the top tier league in the country, right? So I am just as lost as everybody else. I mean, people have interpreted this in their own way, but we know that it's never that straightforward, right? In Indian football.
Yes, of course. The first debate that comes to the forefront is that whether it's the I League or the ISL, which is the top division league of Indian football. But at the moment, I think it's clear that according to the constitution, the I League is the top division league of Indian football. But at the same time, we all know that the ISL, despite its flaws, has also contributed in a way which has made Indian football popular. So there is a huge scope of conflict in this particular clause, the top division league, which may I feel which may lead to a lot of issues between FSDL and the AIFF, and it's what we want to say as fans or any. I mean, most people in the public will agree with that, I guess, is that that should not in any way jeopardize the little progress that Indian football has made in the last 4 or 5 years. This is not taking away anything from the fact that the I League has contributed, immensely to Indian football, but it's also not also keeping in mind that the ISL also has had certain positives in Indian football, especially when it comes to marketing and branding and distribution and television and all of that. If not for the quality of football or whatever it is, that is completely debatable. But in terms of the package which is created, which was much needed in Indian football, and the ISL has provided that. And the I League, at the same time, is comprised of solid clubs and clubs at every level in Indian football, which are equal stakeholders and are equally important for Indian football structure. So I think if you go back to 10 years now, I think most people would have preferred that if everything had combined together into one consolidated league, and all these clubs had given a fair shot and a fair chance to play in the top division of Indian football. And it's funny that we have to come back to the same debate, 10 years later. But eventually, since we have to confront this debate by the act of law, I hope that a resolution on which is the top league and what is the way forward in terms of the league structure and the leagues below it. Like, for example, it clearly mentions that the AIFF has to own a league which has promotion and relegation, and it has to have various divisions, and how these divisions are going to play out to the rest of the country has to be decided upon clearly. So, in this sense, we feel that okay, hopefully, something can be achieved, you know, in a good way on this soon.
Yeah. I'll just carry on. One of the differences as compared to the older constitution is that the technical committee is now rebranded as the technical and development committee according to article 36. One of the key running themes throughout the constitution and even in this article is that it's clear that the COA wants to involve more players. Right now, I know, and some ex players may be on this, but it's always a double edged sword because even till date, you had a lot of ex players in the technical committee, and the suggestions, I mean, there are some suggestions which I frankly cannot agree with. So, should the tech and the first line in this article, it says that consists of 5 individuals who satisfy the criteria of being an eminent player. But my point is that it also should have space for experts such as sports scientists, biomechanical, and if I mean, this is just me saying football's been run by the ex players also, but the suggestions haven't always been top notch. This is just my 2 cents on it. So, I mean, I would really like more diversity in the technical committee than just lump 5 individuals under the eminent player rule right now.
Yes, that makes sense. Yeah. So anything else we would want to bring up from the in terms of the changes from the older constitution that we can talk about before we move on to reading out what suggestions people have put out so far under Dr. Qureshi's tweet. So we will quickly skim through that, and then we will open the space to the public. Yeah.
I think nothing much except the fact that I'm happy that independence and conflict of interest has been added. Very important CEO. I would also like to add other key roles right to this also, but the CEO is a good start to the new constitution. And like I said, I would. I mean, this constitution is more far-reaching in terms of its emphasis on development and planning and other stuff like that than the older constitution. But I would also encourage the CEO and Dr. Qureshi to follow up the planning stage with a implementation clause as well, right? But overall, yes, this looks to be a more comprehensive constitution in my limited opinion than the older one.
Okay, so one more thing which comes to my mind before I move on to reading of the comments is also given the nature of the bottom up approach of the AIFF and the fact that it incorporates district associations, state associations, and then eventually the national association. The fact that most of these people who hold office in the AIFF do not earn a salary or are not paid makes most people wonder whether efficiency or productivity is at stake at the cost of running an organization, right? So we we do not know how this can be solved because it might be an extensive financial outlay to have everybody on a paid role, and it might not be possible because it's like it's NG, it's a non-profit or whatever the way it's defined legally. But we feel that okay, if the state FAs could also incorporate the same structure of the AIFF in the sense that they too hire a CEO or a general secretary to promote the particular sport, because each state is even individually large enough in the size of a country when it comes to India to be able to find commercial uh, viability to hold independent football leagues involving the district associations and finding local sponsors and all of that and making it into a product in itself. And I feel that if the state we feel that if the state affairs could have some sort of a salaried role also, like the AIFF does, uh, in term then we would see that Indian football would actually become a much more professional structure at all levels, not just at the top level. Orko, what do you feel about this?
So there are two two types of employees in the AFF. There are the committees, right? Since they consist mostly of quote unquote eminent people, they're mostly honorary positions, right? But the AFF, let's say, does employ more than 100 people in its various departments, right? Um, what the mismatch that happens here mostly is that we get to hear of some of the decisions that the committees take, but we don't get to hear of the implementation or that the departments do, or we don't get to hear of the targets that are given of the departments, right? I just like to small difference between a committee and a department. I think everyone understands the department is the one that has to execute the daily operations of the AFF, and it's a committee's job to only take decisions, right? So slight difference here, but yes, I mean AFF does have people now. I mean you can question as to whether the job is being done with a lot of efficacy, but uh, yeah, I mean I agree with you when you said that what is the incentive for the committee also, or you know let's have more clarity on their positioning also within the AFF.
Yeah, we know how the national FA works, but we were thinking that if the same structure could be applied across the state FAs, for example, if the state FA could have like a CEO or a general secretary, to make uh, football in that particular state commercially viable and commercially, approachable. In that sense, which would, for example, Bengal and Kerala and all of these other, especially the larger states and even some of the smaller states, which really have footballing population if you look at it closely. uh, what is really missing is the distribution, the visibility, the promotion, and the commercial viability of that particular game. The reason why most people are not approaching the game, and the reason why a lot of investors and money making and companies are not entering into the game is because of the commercial viability, lack of commercial viability of particular products. And if you look at most footballing countries, sponsorships and commercial viability start at the grassroots and then they roll up at the national level. So you have these small clubs, local clubs, who are also sponsored by small clubs, small businesses and small teams, and that is not happening in Indian football. And for that to happen from a top down level is very difficult. But from that to happen from a state level to a district level is much easier than from that happening from a national level to a district level. So what we mean is that if we can have general secretaries and CEOs even at state levels, that makes the operational procedure when it comes to commercial viability a lot more easier and uh, you know efficient, I would say.
So just to intervene here, my understanding of state level football and its economics is that there is no trickle down effect from the AIFF, right? A lot of state affairs have said that they're on their own when it comes to raising funds or any revenue opportunities that come to them. So this is one major point that how do we ensure that money flows to the bottom, right? How do we ensure that money flows to the regions which are producing players? This is a big question that we have, right? It just can't be hosting of one tournament, one Santosh Trophy or one Durand Cup, right? The plan has to go well beyond that. Now there are small sections like State FA earns some money on registrations, and but it's all very minuscule. For State affairs to have right now a commercial viability and b employ CEOs, I can only think of, let's say, three or four state affairs that can currently have the even the monetary bandwidth to do that. Right now, the health of state affairs, most of them and many of them doing good work, is not great, right? So big question marks over them being able to hire salaried staff beyond what is
I mean,
absolutely necessary.
I mean, I agree with that, but at the same time, I mean, each if you look at each state in its own, each state is a country in India, and if people put their heads together, and I'm sure they can. For example, in Bengal, it's getting commercially viable. If you look at Kerala, it is very commercially viable, and if it's possible, I'm sure like if the right kind of people take up the responsibility, it is possible for to make it something which is fantastic, and it is happening in cricket, and it's happening in other sports as well, and you have to understand that football still and most villages across India is the number one preferred sport. Not commercial interests of that particular state FA. They're looking to provide the and all the understand. Hello, hello.
Yeah, Joey. Yeah,
Yeah.
we can just move on to the next section. We're cutting out a bit. Let's move on to the next section.
Okay. Okay. So the next basically suggestions which have already been put up by the public, and this is there in the Excel sheet that is going to be provided in the drive. It's been classified under which article it is relevant to, the topic it is being discussed, the suggestion in itself, the source of the suggestion, which is the tweet, and a category has been defined as to how difficult it might be to implement or not implement. Uh, Obviously, the first suggestion that is come from the public is we need clarification on which is going to be the top league, which is the ISL or the I League. The second clarification is you have to define who is going to get the Champions League and the AFC Cup slots. There is no, definition on the top league and who qualifies from the top league or so on. So, um, in addition, another suggestion is in addition to the top league, there's also a clear definition required on the pyramid below each of these, below the top league and the second division, and so that you know the entire structure of Indian football when it comes to clubs. There's another suggestion which says that each team should have a development squad and one, but this is not relevant to the constitution. But anyways, um, another suggestion which says that under disqualification of events, MPs and MLAs or people holding some sort of political post in the government should be disqualified. Another suggestion is the upper age limit of 70 is too high. It should be made to 60 or 65, uh, same as that of the salaried people in the AIFF. Uh, Another suggestion is that in the eminent players that we have, which is defined in the constitution, it should also be extended to include eminent coaches who have represented India or coached in reputed championships, and eminent referees who also have, officiated to 20 matches internationally, which is a very valid suggestion, I feel. Then, if there are, in the case that, okay, if there are two within the state who claim to be a permanent member of the AIFF. So the AIFF rule states that, okay, there can only be one association which is a full member from a particular state. So if there are two claimants to be rightful member of the national federation from a particular state, what is the transparent and effective mechanism in deciding which one is selected? Okay. Yeah, Orko. Hello, Orko.
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah, go on.
Hello. Yeah, am I audible or am I breaking?
Yeah, you're breaking up. Yeah.
Okay, so what was the last thing that I was clear?
You were talking about suggestions, and for me, I think it was not sure. I think it was you mentioned something about the age limit.
Okay, okay, okay. So we begin from there again. So sorry, my connection was a little down. So basically, somebody said that the age limit of 70 is too high, and it should be made to about 60, 65, which is right roughly about the same age limit as the people who are employed in the AFF is the same as them. So eminent players, we should have eminent, also apart from having eminent players, it should be extended to also include eminent coaches or eminent referees who've coached or refereed in national team, international team matches, or have coached for the national team. Uh, so another suggestion is, in case of in case of two claimants to be a rightful member, uh, from a particular state, what is the transparent and effective mechanism of deciding? For example, if so the AFF allows one full members from each state. So just in case there are two associations which are vying to be a full member of the AIFF from one particular state, what is the transparent and effective mechanism in deciding which association gets the nod? So this is again something which we had earlier discussed. Somebody has also put down a suggestion that there should be some sort of a licensing criteria for state FAs in deciding, their performance, so that they can be held accountable. So there's another suggestion which says that, okay, all minutes, all meetings or everything that is happening in the AIFF should be made documented and made available to the public for them to consume or educate themselves about what is happening within the AIFF. Another suggestion is that since they feel that 12 years of 3 terms each is too long, and it should be limited to 2 terms of 4 years each. It also says that referees and match officials, or all those people who are associated with AIFF in handling tournaments or any of these other things under the AIFF, should not be associated with any particular club, or there should not be any sort of conflict of interest within, by, I mean, when it comes to, um, organizing tournaments or people who are managing these tournaments, so that there's no question of match fixing or anything of that sort, which is coming up, which is uh, kind of commonly heard in lower division leagues in Indian football. Another suggestion is that the technical committee should have people with deep understanding of technical knowledge regarding the game, and it should only comprise of eminent players and no members and no other person uh, who is not a eminent player. Another suggestion is that details of punishment for match fixing or any other sort of unethical practice in Indian football should be specified in the constitution, so that people are aware of what kind of consequences they will face in the case that they engage in any sort of unethical practice. There should be grievance and redressal systems for any sort of threat or harassment that any male or female player or any official or anyone who's involved in the game is facing, and that from different quarters of the establishment or any other people involved in Indian football, and that along with evidence, there should be a system where people can submit this, and there should be a redressal system, so that all of these issues related pertaining to harassment or threat can be addressed effectively. So for every state association, another suggestion is that for every state association, a complete report of the income and expenditure should be made available to the public on a particular website that they own, so that it is if in the case that somebody wants to verify or question the state of association, they can refer to the documents before they can proceed to raising questions against state association. Another suggestion is that individual clubs should also have rights to the media generated on match day, like most leagues worldwide. So, so not only apart from the fact that, okay, the federation owns all the media rights of the content that it's producing within India. If a club is playing into a particular game, they should also have the rights to that particular content, and so that they can promote the the club and the league to their audience. State FAs. Another suggestion is that the state FAs should also declare and publish election details much in advance, just like the AIFF. Another suggestion is for elections, voting for EXCOM president standing committees should be via an open ballot, or at least the voting results and the numbers should be made public. Another suggestion is that there should not be any outside interference in the national team squad and staff selection as to why, for example, does Reliance and IMG representatives sit at coaching interviews. Another suggestion is that each district FA, state FA, and other bodies affiliated with the AIFF should adopt the AIFF constitutions for their respective bodies. And all of these decisions which apply to the state of the AIFF, to the AIFF should also apply equally from the top courts. Courts of law should also apply equally to the state FA and the district FA. Another suggestion is a provision for gathering and responding to a voice of the public. For example, basically fan representation, a way to include fan commentary and fan opinion in making decisions regarding national team or club level matches. Basically maintaining better relationship with fans, better understanding and better engagement with fans on a level which not only bombards them with information but also takes information from fans and implements these informations for better governance and efficiency at both club level and as well as the national level. I think that's all that we have from the suggestions. Some of these suggestions are slightly repetitive, so I did not read them out completely. But again, this is again available to the public. So all of the suggestions that have been made under Dr. Qureishi's tweet is also available in an Excel sheet on a Google Drive link that I will be sharing after the call. And everybody can refer to it. Please do not tamper with anybody's suggestion. And if you are, we will get to know. And if you have your own suggestions, please leave your suggestions in the same format as it has been put already. If you don't understand a particular classification, just leave your suggestions. We will classify it under a particular format. And for us, yeah, that's all we have with regards to suggestions from existing suggestions. And now we will open the space to the public, and Conrad and Orko can, you know, moderate the space moving forward, and I will also be doing it too. Thank you.
I think there's one more really important suggestion that is not put over there is pertaining to the baby leagues. AIFF is supposed to have some kind of a funding for these baby leagues that go on in different states across India, and that should be really implemented to create these younger kids to get involved in the game at an early age.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Conrad and whoever just moving forward, anybody who's giving a suggestion, please keep in mind that it will make our lives 100 times easier if you can also put down the suggestion in the Excel sheet that you've just made, so that we don't have to go to the entire space and take it down ourselves. Okay, so kindly, if you are making a suggestion, make it short, and also make sure you put it into the Excel sheet that is there on the Google Drive, which we'll be sharing later. Okay, thank you. Continue, please. I mean, Orko and Conrad, you can moderate this suggestion section.
Yeah, I think if anyone has any more suggestions, they can just raise their hands and we'll give them the speaker charge.
Does anyone have anything to say? Arunava, sir, Chiranjit, um, you have Jordan Gardner, James Nalton, Olok from Spurs, India Spurs. We have Mazar. Please leave your comments and your suggestions and enrich the public with your knowledge, please. Yeah, Arunava, sir, you can take the mic. Yeah, Arunava, you can speak.
Yeah, very good afternoon here from Germany. Thank you guys for creating this space and trying to propose certain changes to the suggested constitution of the All India Football Federation. One point that I don't see, I mean, I've had a lot of conversations over the last few weeks, even prior to the judgment of the Supreme Court, and one point which seems to be not being incorporated, and especially from my legal friends back in India, is the point of looking at the framework that FIFA gives national federations to be run. Because there are certain points in the new proposed constitution which would not get cleared by FIFA, which would then also mean that India gets suspended. So I think that clarity needs to be there. Because there are certain points that FIFA will, not only FIFA, but also the AFC will come in on, which has to do with the constitution of the federation, the structure of the leagues, and other things. And that's one point that I just want to give a little thought to. That everyone should have a thought to that, because there is one big issue in all this whole judgment from the Supreme Court and how this has been taken forward, is that the law of sport stands above the law of the land, and that's a very difficult thing to I think get through in India at the moment. So I think the visit from FIFA and AFC from the 20th to 24th will be very, very crucial on that. Also to make clear to the COA and also to the Supreme Court and the government of India that certain guidelines and rules and regulations need to be followed for India to be further eligible and to be a registered body under the governance of FIFA. So I think there's certain governance issues which need to be addressed. Just a general point, but one specific point which I found very interesting, which is one of the suggestions that I've made internally to a few people, is the one regarding the CEO. But I would look at the role of a CEO a little differently than what you have defined, because I would divide the functioning of the AIFF in a way that the administrative part is taken care of by a general secretary, while the CEO here is more of someone who looks at the vision, looks how to sort of take Indian football forward, keeps also relationships. I think that's one thing that the AFF is struggling to a certain extent at the moment with FIFA, AFC, with the government of India, with its own stakeholders, with the state associations, because there seems to be sometimes a lack of communication. So I see that more of a CEO role, and the GS being more of a, let's call him a managing director, an MD. That would be sort of my thing where I see, which would work more towards ensuring things are streamlined within the federation. Otherwise, you have a CEO, which, the way you've defined it, the administrative work actually also comes under the CEO. So maybe that is something that I would try and do a little differently.
Thank you, Arunava. Anybody else who wants to put in a suggestion? Can we have somebody from the fan side? Think. How about MUSC Mumbai? You guys, sort of not involved in. I mean, I'm sure you are involved in Indian football, but like from a different perspective altogether. So, what do you guys think about uh, what sort of suggestions do you have?
I think we have a fan. I think who wants to speak. Kumar.
Okay, yeah, Kumar, are you ready to speak? I think we've lost Kumar. Anybody else who wants to you know talk about?
Hello, hello, hello. Are you listening me?
Yeah,
Hello.
Kumar, go ahead. Yeah.
Arka, you said so many match fixings are going on in state leagues. Like in Europe, we had to make a lifetime ban on players and referees who involved in match fixing and all. And another point is instead of ISL giving it their total sponsorship rights and organizing anything, they should only sell the name like La Liga Santander. In front of there should be naming rights, and they can sponsor can add it on the in front of it. And if you are taking only on first division, you are taking care of only on first division. What about the remaining divisions? The players should come from all the divisions. Club should start from the fourth division too, and they should climb up the ladder instead of directly making into the top league. The franchise system should stop at one point, and ISL like ISLA, ISLB, ISLC, ISLA like Serie A, Serie B, Serie C. If they don't want to change the name because of they have promoted vastly in India, they should not. The money is not going into it. That is my opinion.
Okay, thank you, Kumar. As far as I understand, like I mean, this is it's not to do with much with the constitution, right? It's mostly got to do with how the league is defined and sponsorships are roped in for the league, right? Is
Yeah.
that what you mean, Kumar?
Yeah, yeah, of course. But in Article 65, there is a conflict of interest is there. They are saying
Yeah.
that agreement is not valid, but they are saying that you can give total commanding rights of the league to marketing partner. I don't know. I am unable to understand that.
Article 65.
Yeah, agreement. The agreement is void. Whatever you are making agreement with marketing partner or anyone, that is not valid. They are saying. Then how can you make an agreement with another marketing partner or Reliance or FSDN?
Orko, can you
I think Article 55 that you mentioned about it says that as the original owner of all the rights, including the commercial marketing rights, and we know that currently there is another firm which holds the commercial marketing rights. So we're yet to see, Kumar, as to how this will be resolved. The agreement might be restructured for all we know, and the agreement's up for renewal also in 2024, right? And don't forget, they are also organizers of what is the de facto top league right now in the country, given that that league, the ISL, has the Asian Champions League spot. So it, it's a little more complicated than what is written here, and I think we'll find out only more in the days to come on this.
And one more suggestion: instead of keeping match days 2 days, it should be on weekends, not after every 2 days. There is no recovery sessions and there is no minimum gaps and all.
so that I think is going to be decided by the executive committee, and it's a part of their recommendation when it comes to this, and also in terms
And
of
I think FIFA's recommendation is 48 hours. So as long as they follow
yeah.
FIFA recommendations, they're fine.
Yeah, and also in terms of what you said is also valid in terms of visibility, that it should be kept on weekends for maximum visibility. So that is the role of the CEO, or I mean, at least as described by the constitution right now,
Inst-
that the
inst-
CEO will.
Instead of CEO running the AFF, instead of they can make one elect CEO for all the divisions who can run all the divisions like Premier League and all championships. They will CEO is deciding the how Premier League and Championship and EFL how it should run. There should be a CEO for league, not for administration purpose of AFF.
I think the I League has a CEO already, and Orko, does the ISL have a CEO?
I'm not sure what it is, but Martin Bain,
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
remember,
Arco, yeah, yeah. Martin Bain is there.
was elected a few years
Yeah,
ago. Not sure as to.
He's not
I think
elected. He's not elected one. He's
not elected. He was,
brought
yeah,
by brought by
he was
Scott
appointed.
from Scottish Premier League, I think so. He brought from Rangers, I think so.
yeah. So I think like the constitution that we have is only pertaining to the AIFF per se. So when you say that okay, this the leagues has to also have a CEO, I think in most cases like the league does have a CEO. The I League used to have a CEO called I mean Sunanda Dhar used to be the CEO of that league, and as you said about the ISL as well. So I think specifically they have isolated the CEO as a new addition for the AIFF.
But I'd just like to disagree with Kumar here when he says that, AIFF doesn't need a CEO, only the league needs. See, the AIFF is more than just holding a league, right? So
Yeah,
the AIFF itself needs a CEO right now. And given the length and breadth of football in the country, for sure. I mean,
But
there's so
but
many.
but
Yeah,
there is a possibility that AFF will sack CEO if they don't want, they are not interested, he is not going their way. There is a chance that they will sack him, like technical director Isaac Doru. I have seen he told so many things, but after some months they sacked him. Nothing else is worked out.
yeah, completely agree with you on this. I mean, that is where I think the players committee should be trusted with more responsibilities in decision making, and not just I mean honorary members of the state affairs, because players committees, like eminent players, or, like people who are of a caliber, who've worked in football for the longest time, they would be in a much better place to advise as to whether make decisions on the performance of a particular CEO when it comes to football related matters. I feel so. What you're saying is completely true, because in the past we've seen that the many coaches and many technical directors have come, they've given their suggestions, and none of this has been adopted, and they have been fired because of some sort of a ego issue when it comes to the state affairs.
I don't think it is an ego issue. In fourth and
Uh,
exam, they said that they are wasting the money on the technical director. He doesn't have proper role. They want to sack him. They will save money for the next few years. That is
yeah,
the thing said in fourth and
whatever
exam.
issue, whatever conflict of interest that they have, like it's difficult to pinpoint. I mean, I think in case of Bob Hutton, I mean there were issues. I don't remember exactly. It was a long time back, but whatever it may be, like like you're right that this can be used against football in the country, where like they can hire somebody just to be there, and then they not take the suggestions, and basically use that reason that he's not performing well and fire him. So
And
these
one more thing about Arca said about match fixing in state leagues. There should be a strong rule should be there. For example, there should be a live ban on players or referees who involved in match fixing.
Yeah, I mean this is also true. Like there has to be a exact explicit mention of what exactly the punishment is for somebody who's been caught involved in any sort of unethical practice like match fixing or sexual harassment or anything of that sort when it comes to Indian football. So yeah, Kumar, if you don't mind,
Okay,
once
okay.
you're done with the
Tha-
done with your suggestions, can you please put it down in the document? So keep it in mind. Okay,
no, where is the document? Where? How can I?
I will share the link after the space is over. Yeah,
Okay, thank you so much.
yeah. Yes, Aruna, sir. You wanted to speak?
Yeah, I mean, on match fixing and also on harassment, there are FIFA guidelines which have to be adopted by national federations. Um, Harassment, a good example is, I think, how FIFA as well as Afghanistan acted in harassment cases against female footballers from the country. So, one president, amongst other people, was fired of the Afghan Football Federation. So there are guidelines which need to be accepted by the AIFF. The AIFF then needs to ensure that these guidelines which are there and regulations which are then adopted also by the state associations. So one of the next steps also is that all the state associations across India actually follow the the rules and regulations which are put down from FIFA via AFC to the AFF and then to the respective state associations, and they then ensure it with the respective district associations. So then all these guidelines are in place, and whenever these things happen, match fixing, harassment, or other things, you don't need to search and look at what are the options, what can I do. These things are already in place to be implemented.
I think one other thing which is, I mean, very relevant in this case is that, I mean, it's not a secret that most people in Indian football are quite very aware of this. That even players, referees, coaches, or fans, as a matter of fact, journalists, and I mean, they are. I mean, I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, they are subject to different kinds of threat, subtle, soft, mostly, at different points of time, uh, because of things that they say which do not go well with the functioning of the AIFF, or they speak out against the AIFF in some way or the other. So in this, I mean, this kind of environment is not sustainable when it comes to development of football in India, and it sort of sabotages the growth of football in this country. And I'm not sure what kind of a mechanism which can be put into place to sort of address the scenario, but I'm hoping that something of this sort can be also be defined. What exactly harassment means and how it can be defined, and how someone from the AIFF, if found, contacting people to intimidate them in some way or the other. Um, is also when provided with evidence to the court of law, or in a public domain, can be held accountable and be suspended or some sort or the other. So this is something which is very important, because we see this happening across the length and breadth of the country. It happens at all levels, at all divisions, at all intersections when it comes to football in the country. And this, we feel, is a major issue. And this will have to change, and hopefully soon. Yeah.
And one more thing, the match fixing of referees is happening because of they are getting less money. The if people don't get money, they are going to do match fixing because of the money they wanted for survival.
Yeah, this is also true, Kumar. I mean, if you notice, the most of the cases that we hear about max fixing is for very nominal amounts. 500 rupees, which is $7 to $8, and people risk their careers or whatever it may be, because the wages that are paid at different levels of the football pyramid is not enough to sustain football. But that brings us again to the whole cycle of viciousness that exists in Indian football when it comes to the economics of it. As to football is still not a sustainable environment, which is able to provide a platform for different people from different occupations to earn a living from. And this can only change with time and with right regulations and right people who are upholding these regulations in place. And we hope that, and also the performance of the national team, because the performance of the national team is very important in uplifting the mood of the public. As you can see, in the last couple of weeks, last 1 week, the entire perception of the Indian football fan has changed from extreme depression to slightly happier moods. And this, the performance of the national team, along with everything else surrounding the structure and the operation All India Football Federation, including the leagues, including fan engagement, and including interaction with fans, and making life comfortable for them. Because at the end of the day, the fans are the final stakeholders, and most of this constitution has nothing to do with the fans. It's mostly to do with the people, who are operating, and the public operating the AFF system, and also players and coaches and referees and all of that. But very little to do with the people who use football as a medium to express themselves, artistically, or in terms of just coming, spending the money and the spare time and watching the game. So, all of this combined together, we hope something better comes up in the future. Anybody else? Orko, you want to say something?
Yeah, I think pretty much summed it up. Just wanted to just close by saying that the sports code will also have to be kept in mind, because I think Article 80 says age fraud, sexual harassment, the things we were discussing, also has to follow the regulations specified in the sports code. But personally, I would like a few sections like age fraud also to be detailed. Uh, it's probably the number one problem, alongside game time and the length of engagement that's affecting football. So I would definitely want this section at least to be fleshed out.
But Arka, I want to say something. See, the age which your date of birth is different from Aadhaar card in most of the people. If you go under the bone test only, the original date of birth will be revealed.
The bone test is, I think it has been reported that the bone test is not always 100% accurate. So I do not think that can alone affect, act as a source of ruling out somebody. It'll have to be supplemented with other documents.
I think age fraud by itself and most other unethical practices can just be solved by,
Mm.
making the game a lot more popular, so that people don't have to compete when it comes to age. They can compete in terms of talent across different categories, right? And just having transparent systems across, and increasing the supply of systems within the country, to be able for people to able to take it up as something in an ethical way, is going to change a lot of things. So I feel a lot of these problems that are rising in India in football is happening because of a lack of supply of football at a level which is which can provide a vision to a young kid who's taking up football in the long run. So for most people, like who are faking their ages and get trying to get into a team, is probably because they fear that you know they will not be they will not have an opportunity if they don't do that. So I mean, creating an opportunity is providing supplying opportunities is would be a better way to deal with this problem, apart from laying down strict regulations when it comes to institutional rules.
Yeah, thanks for Joel. Just take any other comments, and if there are none, I think we should just close this out.
Yes. Anybody else? Some of you are joining right now, so I would suggest that if you want to listen to this later, and then leave your comments in the Excel sheet or in a Twitter thread that I provide, if you want to make your suggestions public. Uh, if you want to make your suggestions anonymous, you can put it into the Excel sheet that I'm going to upload into the drive, and I'll also upload a copy or summary of the constitution that we've prepared. And it's all up to you guys. If you want to dig it a little deeper and suggest some more for us, and then we can connect again in 10 to 12 days, and about uh, the 24th of June or 23rd of June, when we can have a final discussion and put everything down in terms of suggestions in a structured way, and submit it to Dr. Qureshi for him to evaluate as suggestions made by the public, the wisdom of the crowds, as we keep saying. So Yeah, I mean that's mostly everything from our side. And once again, we would like to remind you that we are just fans. We are football fans. Us in particular are the national team supporters group. Uh, we we have taken this upon ourselves because each and every one of us and all those people who are listening really want Indian football to change from the bottom of our hearts. We don't have vested interests when it comes to politics, finance, or any other sort of involvement other than emotion and passion. And I hope that most people who listen to this understand that and do not take our views in a way which might be uh, perceived differently, and consider that that everybody who's here or most people who are here are mostly fans who want the betterment of the game in India. Thank you. Anything to say, or we and then we close this? I think we are good. Thank you all for joining. We look forward to your participation again in the future, and hopefully we can come up with something which is uh, so. One second. Okay. Thank you everybody for joining, and I think we are done. Nobody has anything else to say right now, and we shall connect soon again in the future. Thank you.